Meet Emma Watson, 97 years old. The woman who preserves time. When you meet Emma Watson, 97 years old, you're not just speaking with an elderly woman. You're encountering a living treasure trove holding nearly a century of lessons, love, and resilience. With her soft, silver hair neatly tied at the nape of her neck and a gentle yet sharp smile that's almost always present, Emma has a way of speaking that feels like she's inviting you into a world where time slows down, making space for peace and wisdom. Born in 1928 in a small town in the American Midwest, Emma has lived through the Great Depression, World War II, the women's rights movement, and the explosion of modern technology. But what makes her truly remarkable is not merely her age, it's the way she views life, with lightness, optimism, and profound gratitude. "Every day I wake up is a day worth living," she says. Emma now lives in a small apartment in a retirement community where she faithfully writes in her journal, brews afternoon tea, and chats with her neighbors. Though age has slowed her steps, her heart remains young, filled with an undying desire to connect and share. Her story is not just a journey through time. It's a powerful reminder that old age is not an ending, but the beginning of a new chapter, rich with emotion, meaning, and grace. 8 lessons Emma has learned after nearly 100 years of life. 1. Loneliness is a choice, not a fate. At 97 years old, Emma Watson lives alone in a small room at a quiet retirement home on the outskirts of town. Many people believe that loneliness is inevitable after living nearly a century. But Emma disagrees. She firmly believes loneliness doesn't come from a lack of people around you. It comes from closing your own heart. When Emma first moved into the home, she kept to herself, holding tightly to her memories and private sorrows. She spent long hours sitting quietly, waiting for a knock on the door that never came. But one day, she noticed the sad eyes of another elderly woman passing by in the hallway. In that moment, Emma realized something. Loneliness wasn't hers alone. It was something many others carried too. So she decided to do something different. Instead of waiting for someone to reach out, she chose to smile first, strike up conversations, share small stories from her younger years, or simply ask a fellow resident how their lunch was. Step by step, her world expanded. She joined group singing sessions, wrote poetry, and even taught a few neighbors how to bake classic cakes from the 1940s. Emma no longer saw herself as the lonely old woman, but rather as someone connected by choice. The friendships she built after 90 didn't just ease her loneliness, they rekindled her daily joy. For Emma, aging doesn't mean fading into silence. It's an opportunity to look deeply into another's heart, and to allow others to see yours. As she puts it, you can't force someone to come into your life, but you can always open the door. Maintaining independence is a daily battle that requires effort. At 97 years old, Emma Watson can no longer move as swiftly as she once did, but she still makes every effort to do things herself, from dressing, folding her blanket, to pouring a hot cup of tea. Many people ask her why she doesn't just ask for help. Her answer is always simple. If I can still do it, I will. Independence isn't easy when the body starts to resist. There are mornings when she feels exhausted, her knees stiff, and all she wants is to sit still for a long while. But she knows, each time she chooses to stay seated instead of standing up, it's a small step away from self-reliance. It's not just about physical strength, it's about the will to keep trying. She once witnessed a roommate, a woman who was initially quite healthy, gradually lose her ability to stand simply because she became too accustomed to being waited on. Convenience had stolen her habit of movement, and, soon after, her belief in her own abilities. Emma took a hard-earned lesson from that. Maintaining independence is a silent battle, requiring perseverance and daily initiative. Since then, she's set small challenges for herself. Taking slow walks in the garden each morning, washing her own hair on weekends, and practicing gentle exercises from her sofa. To her, each act is a declaration. I am still alive. I still have a choice, Whether slow or shaky, those small efforts are what keep her pride and spirit intact. Emma often says, "Independence doesn't just happen. It comes from choosing to act, even when no one forces you to." And that, she believes, is one of the reasons her eyes remain bright and her spirit strong at the age of 97. Daily habits that keep the mind sharp. At 97 years old, Emma Watson still retains something many people admire: a clear, sharp mind and an impressive memory. When asked about her secret, she doesn't hesitate to answer, "It's thanks to small daily habits. Everything I do has a rhythm and a purpose." Every morning, Emma wakes up at the same time. She begins her day by opening her window to welcome the sunlight, then sits quietly by it to sip a cup of tea and read the newspaper. A ritual she's maintained for over 40 years. It's her way of staying connected to the world, keeping her mind active despite her age. "I can't change the world," she says, "but I want to understand it a little more each day." Afterward, she exercises her memory by solving crossword puzzles or reading a passage in French, a language she learned back in high school. For her, it's not just mental training, but also a way to reconnect with the beautiful memories of her youth. Emma believes that when the mind has a routine, it doesn't drift aimlessly. Instead of letting the days pass in a blur, she structures her time clearly, reading in the afternoon, writing in her journal in the evening, and calling friends at night. These small routines, she says, are the threads that keep me tied to life. There are days when her memory isn't as sharp as before, yet Emma still smiles. We don't need to remember everything. We just need to remember what makes us want to live another day. For Emma, aging isn't about the mind fading away. It's an opportunity to befriend oneself. And through her steady habits, her mind, though housed in a frail body, continues to shine like a small lamp in the dark. 4. Attitude determines joy. When asked what her greatest secret to living happily for nearly a century is, 97-year-old Emma Watson answers without hesitation, "It all lies in one's attitude toward life." Emma is not someone blessed with perfect health. She's endured back pain, insomnia, and days when her memory slows down. But instead of complaining, she chooses to smile. "I can't control aging, but I can control how I respond," she says. Every morning, Emma reminds herself of 3 things: to be grateful for waking up, to find one small joy in the day, and to spread a little kindness to others. To her, happiness doesn't come from perfect circumstances. It comes from how we choose to see the imperfections around us. She once shared, "Last week I spilled a full cup of tea all over my favorite tablecloth. Years ago, I might have been upset, but this time I laughed. I've lived 97 years. What's there to be upset about anymore? Even a stain can become a funny story." Emma chooses to surround herself with cheerful people, read uplifting books, and avoid conversations filled with complaints. When someone asked how she manages to stay so optimistic even in old age, she answered gently, "Optimism doesn't happen by accident. I practice it every day, like a habit of the heart." Emma's attitude has not only helped her navigate sorrow, but it also inspires those who are decades younger than she is. Joy, she believes, is not something we chase far and wide. It's how we choose to see life, through gentle eyes, with an open heart, and with a smile that never fades. 5. Friendship is just as important as family. At 97 years old, Emma Watson understands deeply that family can't always be by our side every day. "I love my children and grandchildren, but they are busy living their own lives. I don't blame them. I was once like that too," she says with a soft smile. What makes her feel the least lonely each day isn't the occasional phone call from family. It's the laughter shared over a cup of tea with fellow residents at the nursing home. For Emma, friendship isn't just a gift. It's a form of emotional medicine. "My old friends understand me without needing explanations. We share wrinkles, forgotten names, and endless meandering conversations. And somehow, it still feels warm and comforting." Friendship at this age, she says, is about deep companionship, not through blood ties, but through the rhythm of shared lives. Emma recalls that when she first moved into the nursing home, she felt a deep emptiness. But she decided not to wait for others to come to her. She chose to sit at shared tables, invite others to play chess, and always be the one to start a conversation. I learned that sometimes the people beside you every day become your family. There's Mary, who always brings an extra cookie for Emma even without being asked, and Frank, who loves telling the same old story again and again. These connections have slowly become her support system, a warm hand to hold on late afternoons, a shared laugh despite aching backs and tired legs. Emma shares, "Family is our roots, our blood. But friendship is like the sunlight that shines on us each day. Gentle, quiet, yet reminding us that we are still alive, still loved." She believes that every life needs a few friends close enough to truly listen and patient enough to stay, no matter the age, no matter the passing of time. 6. The past is beautiful, but the present is what's worth living for. When speaking of memories, 97-year-old Emma Watson often smiles as if she's opening an old wooden box filled with familiar scents. She vividly remembers the smell of apple pie in her mother's small kitchen, the red bicycle she rode down dusty summer roads in 1943, the gaze of her husband, who stood by her side for over 60 years before leaving on a rainy afternoon. "The past is beautiful," she admits, "but I don't live there." Emma once found herself drifting into the past out of habit. Every story began with, "back then," and every quiet afternoon became a time to mourn those she had lost. But eventually, she realized she still had mornings to open the window, bird song to listen to, hot mint tea to savor, and old friends still waiting for her to sit down beside them. The present isn't as glamorous as youth, but it's real, she says. It's where we can still love, still learn something new, still smile. She began practicing meditation at 94, learned how to use an iPad to video call her grandchildren at 95, and every evening still writes a few lines in her journal, even if it's just about a flower that bloomed late in the garden. For Emma, living in the present is a gift we must consciously unwrap each day, not because we can forget the past, but because we deserve to live fully in what remains. She often reminds others, memories are a place to visit, not a place to stay. And the present, even if slow, even if full of limits, is where we can still breathe, still feel, and still live with gratitude. 7. Growing old doesn't mean growing weak. At 97 years old, Emma Watson no longer moves as quickly as she once did, but every step she takes carries a strange and steady determination. "I am not weak," she says softly but firmly. "I've simply grown older." There were times when people looked at her with pity, when they saw her entering the supermarket with a cane, or when she declined to climb the stairs. But Emma knows well, strength isn't measured by muscle, but by willpower and the constant choice to stay engaged. She still brews her own tea every morning, writes in her journal every evening, and takes her dog for slow walks around the garden. Small actions, yet clear proof that she is still in control of her own life. "Weakness begins when we give up," she says, "and I have never intended to do that." Emma underwent knee surgery at the age of 92, requiring nearly half a year of recovery. Yet, instead of complaining, she committed to daily exercises, starting with small leg stretches, gradually working up to slow walks around the garden. She knew that if she didn't fight to maintain her independence, it would quietly slip away, never to return. She often shares with friends, "We can't avoid growing old, but we can decide how we grow old, with helplessness or with dignity." For Emma, aging is a new journey, where strength is no longer measured by speed, but by resilience and unwavering spirit. So whenever someone says to her, "You're so frail," she simply smiles, gestures to the hot cup of tea on the table, the book she's reading, and her legs that still carry her to the window each morning, and gently replies, "I've only grown older, not fallen." If there's one message Emma Watson wants to leave for younger generations, it's this: don't wait until you're old to truly start living. At 97, she holds no regrets, nor does she resent time for taking away her youth or health. Instead, she is deeply grateful for the years that have passed, despite the losses, despite the wrinkles, because each line carries a lesson, a story, a piece of her soul that has matured. Don't let life sweep you away like a leaf caught in the current. Pause and choose something that warms your heart, whether it's cooking a simple meal, writing a few lines in a journal, or sitting quietly with a loved one and truly listening to their stories. Emma believes that old age should not be an ending, but the most special chapter of life, where we have the chance to live slower, live deeper, and live more authentically. She calls it the quiet reward for those who dare to live wholeheartedly when they are young. She smiles and says, "If I could give you a gift, it would be peace in your mind, gratitude in your heart, and eyes that still remain curious about the world." Though she can no longer travel far or do everything she, once, could, Emma keeps her connections alive, with nature, with her neighbors, with music, and with her own inner world. And before closing, she gently adds, "Live in a way that by the time you reach my age, you won't feel the need to start over. Live so that you can smile at your past and embrace your present with everything you have."